traits,
and entrepreneurship.
You need to stay curious, counter culture, be yourself, stay close to those people that support you, that encourage you, guardian angels, embrace failures, get your hands dirty, and be a doer.
Hello everybody, welcome back to the new episode of Henri and Mike. Today is the 13th of July 2022. It is a Wednesday. At the moment it's about 16 p.m. in the afternoon. And let me introduce you to the lovely Bedok Reservoir. That's where we are on the eastern part of Singapore. So people usually come here for run and chill. It's quite a nice place, to get some fresh air. So if you're here next time in Singapore, why not check it out? It's different from the city center. Anyway, so Mike, how is your week?
So far, so good. It's Wednesday today.
Yeah.
So it has been a week since we last had our episode.
Mm-hmm.
This is episode 13 already.
Exactly.
Yeah. So last few days, it was a long holiday because it's Hari Raya Haji.
Yeah.
So I met up with my friends and family again. So I really like that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
It's a short week this week. So it's on the second working day out of 4 work days that you have this week.
Yeah.
So I'm still looking forward to the next 2 days until the end of the week, to do more stuff.
Right.
Yeah. How about you?
My week has been busy. I mean, I'm kind of settling into the new routine right now.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of shift all my CrossFit exercise to the morning. Just kind of wake up 5 a.m. in the morning and leave home at 5:45 so I can be in town in the city center to do my CrossFit at 6:45 to 7:30.
That's really early.
It is early, but I think that's a new routine now because that's the only time I can do some exercise. And I managed to build it into my new schedule, which is nice. And the rest of the time, basically kind of taking care of mom and doing grocery shopping or just kind of doing errands, basically.
Okay.
So I'm becoming more and more precise in terms of my timetable, like schedule-wise, so I can still be productive. It is not easy, but it's just the reality itself at the moment.
Okay.
So that's this week. So Mike, what's your word for this week?
I don't have a word yet per se, but there's this thing that has been in my mind for the last couple of days.
Right.
Because there's this group of friends that I have who believe that they want to be, or rather they are in a pursuit of being a better version of themselves. So there's this video that has been going around within the group. It's essentially Sir James Dyson, CEO of Dyson Limited, the one that the vacuum cleaner. They are famous for their cyclone vacuum anyway, and the air wrap. The ladies will probably know that. So Sir James Dyson gave a speech to his juniors. He went back to his alma mater in this place called Holt in the UK.
Okay.
Yeah, so Holt is situated in the northeast of London, near the coast. His alma mater is essentially Greysham.
Right.
So it's a school that I think the age group probably is like maybe from, you can call it elementary school or primary school age, all the way up to, maybe 18 years old. He was invited as a guest because he was a graduate from there, and then he's an inventor.
Right.
So he was there to give a speech and also just nice to open one of the buildings that he has donated. Yeah, took the chance to give a speech.
Right.
But anyway, the focus of this video was really about the content, what he has shared with his juniors.
Yeah.
So there were in fact 5 points which stood out. I find it very interesting. I am still thinking about the 5 points. He doesn't even use the word advice. He's telling his juniors that he encouraged you to strive for these 5 points. The first point is curiosity. You need to stay curious about the things, the people around you, so that you can constantly learn more about yourself, explore different things. So curiosity is important. That's the first point he made. The second thing that he mentioned was about counterculture. Counterculture is not something that is very intuitive to people, because why do you need a counterculture, right? But the point he was trying to make here was that you need to stay true to yourself. A lot of time there'll be naysayers around to say that, hey, your belief is not right or you are not the norm. Yeah. So then a lot of people will be forced into that norm, that mold. So what he was trying to advocate was to be yourself, and sometimes your opinions or the way you look at things, the way you interpret things might be different. And that's unique. So counterculture in that form, in that sense.
Yeah.
The third point that he was making was about guardian angels. So he encouraged the juniors to stay close to those people that support you, that encourage you. Because same thing, along the way where you're exploring, trying to create or invent, right? You will encounter a lot of people who disagree with you. They basically say nasty things, the naysayers, right? So find the community, the people, the mentors, the people who think alike, to support you, who encourage you and stay with them. The fourth point he mentioned, which I resonate a lot with, is about failure. A lot of times, based on his experience, failure is usually shy upon, or people mention about achievements and downplay this failure part. But in fact, you need to fail a lot of times in order to know what works. One I can think about is inventor like Thomas Edison, the guy who invented light bulb.
Yeah.
It took him 999 times. He failed 999 times, and on a 1000th try, he managed to have this light bulb.
Succeeded.
Yeah. And people ask him, hey, Thomas, is it that you failed 999 times? And he said, no, it took me 999 tries to find the right material in order for me on that 1000th try to get that product out and that is useful for the humankind.
Yeah.
He stayed true to that. So failure and then perseverance, right? So that resonated a lot when Sir Dyson mentioned, I was like, oh yeah, it's true. People really need to embrace failures.
Right.
More often than not, we shy away from failure, or even we fail, we don't say much about it. People don't mention that. People don't celebrate failures. But in fact, failure is the thing that helps you to bounce back more.
The reason why people don't like to talk about failure is because they are afraid of how others will perceive them.
That's exactly where he mentioned the previous point about the guardian angel, right?
Also, it leads to the fifth point.
Yeah, the fifth point he mentioned was about doer. Doing, basically do. Get your hands dirty and do. Be a doer. Then a grandstander. What we can interpret grandstander essentially just that human beings just want the achievement, want the limelight to be on them, want a spotlight, so that, oh, see, look, I'm so good. But more often than not is people stay in that and they don't do much. They say, but they don't do and don't fail. So to me, what Sir James Dyson mentioned is a little bit like a mental framework that one can use, be it whether you want to create, you want to innovate, or you want to invent things. A lot of times you think about it, in any organizations that we belong to or any community that we belong to, we always try our best to be ourselves and bring value to others. This, to me, what Sir James Dyson mentioned can be a good mental note, can be a good mental framework of approaching life, maybe. What do you think about that?
You say he's encouraging instead of giving advice, right? I think that's also very...
He refused to use the word advice.
But I think it's a very good way to use that word, because by using the word encouragement, he brings himself down to level to the students that, hey, we're in the same level. And this is kind of like from my experiences, and that's what I'm sharing with you. But if you are giving someone advice, means that you're from a top position, you're giving someone advice to the bottom part. So the level of authority and also relatedness is different.
There's some form of respect as well, right?
Yeah. I think to some extent it's very valuable what he gave. At the same time, I'm just kind of tied out to some of the books I've been reading recently. For instance, this book was just published in May this year, 2022, by Tony Fadell, Fadell. The book title is called Built, B-U-I-L-T. He basically described his career, what he has learned throughout his career, and how he actually break it down into 6 different categories, and that describe the lessons that he would like to give people who are in different stages of their career building or entrepreneurial projects. You see, so they are build yourself, get a job, build your career, build your product, build your business, and be CEO. And the 7th point, they sort of say like extra, like it is beyond CEO. So basically this book for me is important in the sense that I'm exchanging this idea with a friend of mine from Zurich. We're kind of like just exchanging ideas with each other because we have graduated a long time ago, more than 10 years ago, and we worked through our life in a career in a corporate for a long time, in the banks or the financial institution or consultancy firm as well. So this book, why is it resonates so much to us? Because when we graduated, what we were looking for are 3 things: status, money, and brand. What are the brands that are big names out there I want to go so I can get the most resources and it looks nice and it looks chic on my resume? And second of all, what are the jobs out there that can give me the most money as a young graduate? And also the third thing, the third point, the status. How, when I start climbing this part, be it with the big brands or climbing through a corporate ladder, I can get at some point. So all these 3 points, just how the society look at us. And that make you to decide who you want to be as a person. A lot of young graduates get into that. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it, but just that Tony Fadell has a different approach to that. He said it is really important to think about what are the values or what are the skill sets you want to learn? What do you want to learn? And this what you want to learn will stay throughout your career. And it is essentially very important. The reason why I can resonate so much is because the industry is changing all the time. So you always require different tools and different knowledge. So if you don't stay alert or like have this continuous learning kind of mindset, you will be really fall behind or get stuck in certain level and you can't get out of it. And why it's important is because it helps you to progress. It helps to grow. It helps you to really reach the point whereby you are building something valuable for the society. And that ties in very closely to what you just mentioned from Sir Dyson. He talked about these 5 different traits. And that, in my opinion, I think is like an entrepreneurial spirit. How to be an entrepreneur. You know, you gotta be brave, take risk, be curious enough to ask questions, and don't be afraid to shy away from asking questions, and stay away from all the naysayers. People who say no, you cannot succeed, and this is not the right way to do things. No, be brave enough to say no. This is worth trying. Like Thomas Edison, you just mentioned a story. And ultimately, you also have to build your reports. People who are around you, you call it the guardian's angel, and that's basically either your loved one, your family, friends who give you the moral support, love. At the same time, it could also be mentors who has been in the industry for a long time, who can provide you some financing and enable you to grow further. You see, so I think that's where he's going. So which means that you can definitely be a person whereby you have that, you know, the entrepreneurial spirit to go for it. But at the end of the day, you can't do everything by yourself. You need a group. You need to build your own team.
Right.
And that closely related to Tony Fadell, what he meant by, you know, building a business and being a CEO, because ultimately you have to progress to the point that you need to start hiring and know how things work.
You know, one thing I realized is this, because when Sir James Dyson, when he gave the speech 1.5 weeks, 2 weeks ago, it was to the juniors of his alma mater, right? And as you mentioned about Tom
Fadell,
Fadell, right, about the book that he wrote, it seemed to me, am I right to say that what Sir James Dyson, the 5, let's call it traits maybe, it's applicable to young graduates, but do you feel or do you think that it's also applicable to adults who have been working for, I don't know, 5, 10 years,
Yes,
20 years?
It is applicable to everybody. The thing about it is that you look at it twofold. Okay, first is Sir Dyson and also Tony Fadell. They actually say all this based on their own career.
Right.
You see, they have pivoted many times. But the thing is, Sir Dyson, he encouraged the youngster to do that. But the youngster, most likely, they might not have the experience yet, so they can listen to it. But for them to actually totally realize that, it's either they have the exposure to the whole case that Dyson mentions, or they're just really brave enough to try that. See? So at some point, they will realize it, they will go through that. On the other hand, for adults who has been working for a long time, like me or you or anyone else, for us, it's about our curiosity, whether we're brave enough to step away from our comfort zone to start something that what we believe in. And that's the hardest part, because once you get into the comfort zone, it's harder for you to pull away from there to start everything from scratch, or even to maintain a side hustle. And that will eventually become sustainable enough for you to go long term. It is applicable for both sides. This also ties down to another book that I remember now. It's called Grit, G-R-I-T, by Angela Duckworth. Which was published in 2016. So the whole idea of her book, she's a psychologist, to test like whether grit is a talent or is a effort. Talent means that you are born with it, and effort means that you do not necessarily have that.
It's nurtured.
But it's nurtured.
Not born with it, basically.
You're not born with it, but you can grow, you know, you can practice and get there. So in her book, she do the analysis for that and tell different story and case studies. Obviously, there are other psychologists who do not believe in that, but her argument is that that's not only applicable for the kids or the educator or the parents, but at the same time, it's also applicable for the adults, you know. So she argued that it is possible that as an adult, it's applicable to us as well. And she also gave different measurement and framework how we can do it. Grit itself is a personality trait. It embodies the perseverance, the hard work. And that tied down very nicely with what Sir Dyson kind of just mentioned, the 5 different elements, you see. So a lot of them is actually inbound, the growth elements inside of you. Once you have those things right, you can do a lot of things.
Yeah, I do agree with that. As I was thinking and reviewing about what Sir Dyson mentioned, these 5 points, what came out very strongly is about these 3 things: curiosity, perseverance, as well as simplicity. Sir Dyson, he himself is an engineer and an inventor. People might think that they are very brilliant, very bright, because they can solve complex situations and tasks. You know, in fact, if you look closely, it's otherwise, because what engineers and people like Sir Dyson did or do still is to break down complicated, complex situation into simple stuff and then tackle it one by one, tackle all the simple stuff. That 5 points he made, it can be a mental framework to really encourage people who are in their 20s, 30s, or even 40s to stay curious, to persevere, and at the same time, do things simply, breaking down all this, complicated stuff.
Breaking things down into steps to make it doable. So it's a lot about doing and not so much more about analyzing. So it keeps you going. So those are the things that I think are nice traits to have. So that's why I kind of tie into
Grit and Build these two books, right?
Grit and Build these two books, yeah. And ultimately, you're describing people who are like an entrepreneur, who embody that entrepreneur spirit to set out this venture.
I started off saying about the 5 points and gave me the word I have for this week, which will be traits.
Traits.
Yeah, and then I think you pushed the conversation further because you brought in the idea of build as well as grit, and it's actually more applicable to 20s, 30s, even 40s from looking at it from an entrepreneurial perspective of things. Because I think what Sir James Dyson was really trying is to encourage youngsters to stay true to these traits and work on these traits. And then you push this conversation further, but hey, it's also applicable to people who are in their mid-careers. These traits is still good to continue to build. And even like Tony Fadell, he also mentioned the 7 points that you made. A lot of it converge with what Sir James Dyson mentioned.
I think it's nicely put this way, yeah. I think my word for this would be entrepreneurship. But let me just tie down to the last point. I think what these two guys, Tony Fadell and also Sir James Dyson, what they have done is really admirable and very respectful, is that they went through all this hard work and accumulated all these experiences, and they have either given speech or published books to tell the next generation that these are the things that's possible, mistakes you could possibly avoid, and what are the things that you should really focus on, like value-wise, you see. Because for Tony Fadell, his most iconic word, what I know, the initial one,
Apple.
iPod.
Oh, he works with Apple.
And iPhone, these two products. There are other products there as well, but iPod and iPhone, that rings a
These
bell to
two
me.
iconic
products, yeah.
Okay.
And then how he eventually moved away from that area and then started his own investment advisory firm called Future Shape, which he gives values, that give advices or even encouragement to the next generation of startup that will benefit the society. So I think these are the two very good things that they give back to the society, so people can be more steadfast and sure that, hey, there are people who have done it before, and if they have done it, why can't we? And also imagine that we are living in the era whereby the technology is so advanced. Basically everybody, any Tom, Dick, and Harry can also do that. Just whether you're willing. And that willingness comes down to the 5 personality traits of the entrepreneurial spirits that we just talked about in this episode.
It's a good combination of 2 or 3 different influential business leaders in their own right, coming together and trying to extract this wisdom. We kind of have these 2 words rightly spot on this week.
So those are the 2 words for our week: entrepreneurship and
traits. Yeah.
Okay, anyone, lovely people. So don't forget, this is Bedok Reservoir.
Come by to visit if you come to Singapore. It's on the eastern part of Singapore.
And did you see that school there? It's called Temasek Poly. I used to study there as well. Many years ago. Maybe one of these days I'll walk back and have a look. I've not been there for so many years, But anyway, so thank you very much for listening to us in this episode on podcast or even YouTube, because on YouTube, you can look at all the different visuals about this whole environment or the stories that we're telling. So if you like this episode, don't forget to like, share, and comments. We'll
subscribe to Henri and Mike channel as well.
Henri and Mike, we'll really appreciate that a lot. With that, we're signing off. This is Henri.
Wait. Be kind to yourself, as Henri will always say.
And take care of each other, and don't forget to smile. We shall see you in the very next episode. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
In terms of just reading at the review, and also what's that? It just winked. Also, it was a bird.